Let's talk to Brian Sweeney, who's on the line. Hello, Brian.
Good afternoon, Leslie.
Hello. You're a wee bit faint there, but doubtless you'll pump up the volume in a second. You're Assistant Firemaster at Strathclyde.
That's correct.
Can we try and get this thing about the keys sorted out?
Yes, indeed.
The story, again, being that two guys came off a picket line in Ayr, went to answer a call for a house fire, found the fire engines locked, and took the breathing equipment in their own cars to help 4 adults and 2 children to safety.
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple of things about that, Leslie. I can confirm that an event that you've described took place today. Certainly, there's a number of issues there. Firstly, the firefighters had access to the station, otherwise they couldn't have got near to our engines. The second is the engines couldn't have been locked if they were able to access them and remove the breathing apparatus. I think the problem seems to stem from the fact that there are 5 vehicles in Ayr. 5 of those vehicles sitting in the appliance room, 4 of which are full-time, whole-time firefighters' vehicles, 1 of which is a retained or part-time unit. Now, all 5 have been placed off the run. In other words, the crews that would normally staff those vehicles have indicated they would not be available. As a precaution, in line with our security policy, we've removed the keys from the full-time vehicles only and advised staff that they will be placed in the safe, the sort of station strongbox, if you like, Leslie, so that if there was an event such as Ayr, they could quickly open the strongbox, remove them, and take the vehicle.
The strongbox is in Hamilton?
No, the strongbox is in each of the 38 fire stations that we occupy, Leslie. So the crews were advised, and indeed we advised the Strathclyde officials, that every fire station within Strathclyde Fire Brigade would have its keys removed and the keys placed in the safe. Those keys were in the safe and were available. So why the firefighters concerned removed breathing apparatus sets when the keys were already available in the strongbox, I'm not sure.
Do they have the code for the strongbox?
Well, no, they don't. The issue there, Leslie, is that on board all of the appliances is a range of breaking in, cutting and threading equipment which would have given them access to the strongboxes in less than 30 seconds. But a second point, Leslie, if I may...
I'm still reeling from the first point a wee bit.
Okay.
Hang on a minute. How were they supposed to get into the strongboxes?
We have advised the senior officials that because of the problems we have with station security, in effect 38 fire stations that were occupied 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which are now unoccupied. And because we have, last year, for example, had a fire engine stolen from a fire station, because of that, we didn't feel it appropriate to leave the keys in the ignition.
We've got the idea the keys are in the strongbox. I'm still trying to find out how the guys are going to get into the strongbox.
They would use simple cutting equipment that's on the fire engine, Leslie.
You're joking. You are joking. Please tell me you're joking.
No, not at all, Leslie.
You expect them to use fire-cutting equipment to get into safes to get the keys to the fire engines in an emergency? That's
the interim arrangement we've made, Leslie, yes.
Oh, goodness me.
Leslie, could I say, it sounds as if in the picket line we need to get Fingers McNulty in there to break into the safe. But it's a much more serious issue than that for me to make the glib comments. But I think it's quite ridiculous what we're saying, would break into safes before taking fire engines out. And anyway, I think we need to move back to the point now that the pickets will not be on the stations much longer than that, and that's why we need to resolve this dispute. I think it's a bit of a diversion, this key issue, because, as I say, we're moving away from there and promoting our claim for professional pay.
This is fine, because there's one dispute going on, which is between you as firefighters who are striking and your employers. Hello, the public's here. We might like to have a little say about whether or not keys are locked up in a safe that you are supposed to take fire-cutting equipment to.
What would the press make of it? Firemen break into safes. I mean, obviously the press now, certain sections of the press are trying to run down the campaign, and they would make mayhem of that. Funny you should mention that, because a man has been sitting quietly, uncharacteristically silently. Derek Stewart-Brown. Hello, Derek.
Good afternoon, Leslie.
Assistant editor of the Scottish Sun. What do you make of this? Just before we come on to everything else, John is saying, look, he doesn't really want to talk about where keys are stored. I'm sorry, if I was in Ayr and thought there was a major incident and I was relying on someone's ability to use equipment to cut into a safe, I would be pretty concerned.
Can I say, Leslie, this is John McDonnell. I know it's ridiculous, but I think the whole situation is so ridiculous.
Hang on a minute, I'm asking Derek. He's been quiet for half an hour, which is too much for the boy.
It's far too long, Leslie. And I do hope that our reporters are listening into that story and will be looking looking at that for tomorrow morning, because what a ridiculous situation to be in, where we're asking firefighters to break in to their own fire stations, literally to take an engine out or take equipment out. It's ridiculous.
Brian, it does sound absolutely ridiculous.
Leslie, I fully understand that, and I think, I have no disagreement with the general comments that are being made. Can I merely articulate to you in very brief language a couple of points? The first thing is, in the air situation, I know it was only one specific situation. There was a fire engine sitting there with the keys in the ignition, which could have gone with those firefighters to help them.
That was the retained one?
That was the retained one.
So it was the one they were not used to using?
Correct. So I'm assuming they've elected
one.
not to use that. So that's the first point. The second is that with fire engines being stolen and with fire stations lying empty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week...
With a picket line outside it?
Well, with a picket line in most cases outside...
Do you think the picket lines would let somebody nick a fire engine?
Well, no guarantee, Leslie, because we did ask for one, that they would be there 24 hours a day.
Do you think the public might just want you to put a wee Johnny in for the period rather than lock the keys in a safe?
Leslie, I do hear what you're saying. Can I also articulate to you that in places like Paisley and Parkhead, when we arrived on duty, there were no keys in the vehicles?
Right, that's one thing. Are you telling me that across the Strathclyde force, all the keys are in safe boxes, which to use, the firefighters are expected to cut into the safe with cutting equipment from the fire engines?
What I'm reflecting to you, Leslie, is that the arrangement we have made because of the drastic security problem we have is that all spare keys to all vehicles that are lying in a strong box, access to the strong box is easily gained within 30 seconds by trained firefighters using all the equipment provided for them.
And just to make sure there's not an even more absurd aspect to this, I'm presuming that the fire engines are unlocked.
The fire engines are all unlocked and readily accessible, Leslie.
Right, and that's going to continue to be the policy?
Well, until such point as we have a more reflective and mature approach to that, and we can come up with other solutions.
You're finding that your own approach is immature and unreflective, is it?
Well, that's very cleverly put, Leslie.
Well, I'm only listening to you. I'm only putting your own words back to you. You're talking about a mature and reflective approach, which would be a better thing. Too right. Who is being immature and who is unreflective?
Well, what I would say, Leslie, is that the maturity...
I'd like you to answer that.
Yes, I am indeed. The maturity of approach that I refer to is one within which the firemaster of this brigade can give no surety as to whether his personnel will or will not be responding to a fire incident at any given time, day or night, across 38 fire stations within Strathclyde. What would you have us do, Leslie? Leave all of the keys in the ignition where vehicles clearly will be stolen and not available for fire? Or provide the environment within which the vehicles are easily usable within 30 seconds. We believe the latter is more mature. However, if there is a more mature approach that we can develop across coming weeks where someone suggests a more appropriate response, then that's the one we'll adopt. Our view is that in terms of enhancing public safety, we have to deal with an environment where for the last 48 hours, we've had no whole-time professional firefighters, and the next 48 hours we will.
So can I just ask you one last thing, Brian?
Yeah.
Your concern is about things being nicked, yeah? And you've got the fire engine sitting there with this all-important cutting equipment in them, open. Yeah. Supposing somebody nicks the cutting equipment, there's an emergency, and 30 seconds is not enough to open the safe because the equipment is nicked, which you must grant is a possibility because that's the reason you won't leave the keys in the ignition in the first place.
Well, that is very true. What we are seeking to do is develop policies, Leslie, which would make engines easily accessible to Fire Brigades Union members.
Can you just try that one out, Brian? There's a wee logic thread to it, which is if stuff can be nicked, the cutting equipment can be nicked, and then no one can get into the safe, and then the keys are effectively not available, and then the fire engines are not usable by anyone, period.
Yes, we have actually put in some arrangements, Leslie, to take that eventuality. We have.
Could you tell us so we might feel a bit happier, people in Strathclyde?
We have located a range of spare key arrangements for all of those 38 strong boxes with officers who would be dispatched quickly to open them. And at the moment,
Why not put in security people?
We have.
As a part-time, as an emergency measure.
That's
get
right.
Get a security firm in.
It's a very useful point and a valid one. We have, in 7 of our 38 stations, put in full-time security. But again, because of the lack of certainty, and I know that I can sense your frustration, Leslie, because of the lack of certainty as to whether action was or wasn't going to take place, having been cancelled on 3 occasions, it's very difficult to engage security quickly at short notice to cover all of the sites all of the time. And really the problem
Well,
we've
maybe
had
we
is-
can sort that out here. You know, security people, if you've got opinions on how difficult it is to hire you at no notice, given that many other people, due to this strike, have had to make a lot of arrangements at very little notice, give us a call. Give us a call on anything you've heard there. 0500 92 95 00.